John Beaudin, Shannon Edwards, rock history, music, and a great topic tonight. You know what? We borrowed this topic. I know you've got a lot to get to.
There's
Shannon.
a lot to get to today.
But Danica, not too loud.
Turn it down, please.
Danica, can you turn it down?
Thank you.
Danica, our autistic wonder daughter, she
is with us tonight.
She plays her schedule over and over again so that she can remind herself. It's a little bit of stimming or whatever you call it.
Yes, so if we're just going to try to get her to turn down her iPad a little bit. We are flying solo here today. We usually have...
Just got ready.
You usually have the family here to help us out sometimes.
Shannon just got out of the shower.
Just got here, and yeah, so I look forward to kind of seeing...
Yeah, but what we're going to come up with. Hey, Darren, you're on, I don't know if he's on Facebook. Oh, usually it'll show us. That's from YouTube. I won't read those. I'll read these. So we have a new system, which is Restream now, which is we're getting people from Twitter, Facebook, a few different groups on Facebook, and they're just coming on and talking to us. So 1973, I was 13 years old.
I'm getting the same thing you are here, just so you know.
Well, no, that's Facebook.
Okay.
See? So those I won't read. You're going to read those.
Perfect. So
in 73, I was 13. Someone in this room was 3.
What? I think I was not. What, 9? What?
73. No, you were 3.
I wasn't turning 3 till the end of the year. So.
November. Oh, that's even worse.
That's right.
You were 2 in the middle. At this time,
2.
You were 2.
Yeah.
I didn't date her. Like when I graduated, we always laugh at this. When I graduated, I'll tell my friends that I graduated with. Shannon, when I graduated, was actually, how old were you? In 1970, you were 9.
I was 9. 8, actually, when you graduated.
No. Oh my God, you were 8.
I guess.
I didn't date her then. So we're going to get to the topic in a second. No, I did. Hey! You know, it's so weird, right, on Facebook or YouTube. Sometimes, you know, with, what's her name, that Miranda Sings girl? Man, has she gotten into trouble. Just before we get on, I used to watch her. I had no problems watching her. I used to think she was incredibly funny. I don't know how such a beautiful girl could make herself look ugly, but that was her plan because Miranda was supposed to be this girl with the big lipstick stuff. You've never seen her. No, I'm not going to send you to her. She's just in a lot of trouble. They're accusing her of grooming her fans. But anyway, before we go on, I want to give credit where credit is due. I got a lot of these albums, most of these albums from Matt Wardlaw from Ultimate Classic Rock. Anyone who watches this channel knows, and they use a lot of my stories, knows I love Ultimate Classic Rock. I'm in it like a few times a day. I go into their site, so I really appreciate them, and they've got 50 albums turning 50 in 2023. We didn't include all the albums they put on. There's a few that I wouldn't have added, but that's okay. Most of them, you know, Matt's a great writer, and I know how much research it took to do this article. So, and I follow him. I follow a lot of stuff that he's written. So, albums that why 73 was such an amazing year in music, one of the greatest years in music. I mean, think about it. If you're around my age, I'm 63. You were a teenager. I just became a teenager in 73, so it meant so much to me, the music that was being released. A lot of these albums I didn't discover till a few years later, but Dark Side of the Moon everyone had, and that'd be the pinnacle of 1973. Shannon's going to read some of your comments, and then we're going to get to the list that Matt from Ultimate Classic Rock came up with.
Pookie Martinez. Hey, Pookie, Deep Purple made in Japan. Who do you think we are?
Yeah, who do we think we are? It was one of the ones that Matt put on his list. I'm going to take my glasses off.
Fraser J. Guys, I wasn't even born then. Ha.
Really? Good evening from New Brunswick. David Carswell. David, did we talk to you before? Because we just came from New Brunswick. I'm from New Brunswick. I'm from Miramichi, New Brunswick.
Electric Sailor, when you say the word 1973 Grand Funk Railroad, we're an American band LP.
Yeah.
It's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Someone had put on when we were talking to David, Mark Farner, and we talked to Paul Brewer as well from the band. Paul's still in the band. Mark wants to be back in the band, wants to do a big farewell tour. They're not going to let him back in. It's a sad thing. But there was a lot of discussions on who really wrote We're an American Band. And Mark says he wrote most of it, and Paul says he wrote most of it. So they argue a lot. Anyway.
James Bashir is, hey, James.
Hey,
there was so much good music then. Started going to concerts a little more regularly.
Yeah. I didn't go to my first concert, I think, till 74. I'd have to check my journal. My journal's more accurate than anything I'm going to tell you.
Rick May, greetings from Ohio. Just listened to one of my favorite groups, Fleetwood
Whack.
Tell John and Shannon hit that like button, please. Yes.
And Darren told him. I noticed before we came on. Darren had told
funny.
him, "He says you're a funny guy." Yes, press the like button because
Thank you, Rick. That's hilarious what you come up with every week.
I'm going to get to some of Matt's stuff in a second.
And Dr. Insomnia, 73 was also the year of Frank Zappa's Overnight Sensation.
Yep, it was.
And Pookie says, Bungie, never turn your back on a friend.
Hold on a second. Oh, God, I'm all completely mixed up here.
Darren says, for John, April wine, electric jewels.
Well, it's funny you should say that.
Huh?
Because there you go. 1973. This is when Jim Clench, who was their bass player, and Miles Goodwin really traded back and forth. This is the last album where they really did that. Even when Jim's dead now, when Jim Clench came back, I think in the 90s, don't quote me, and I interviewed him, he wasn't sharing. By that time, it was Miles Goodwin was the basic guy. But on this album, it was Jim Clench and Miles Goodwin trading, sometimes in the same song, back and forth. I've only got 4 here because I didn't alphabetize my CDs yet or my albums, so I can't find them. Selling England by the Pound, 73, arguably Genesis' greatest album. I think it really is. Arguably Elton John's greatest album, double album, Goodbye Elbert Road, 1973. There were 2 in 73 for Elton John. In the beginning of 73, it was Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player. So,
Electric Sailor. Please Don't Let Me Forget, among other fine debut albums from 1973. Bachman Turner Overdrive's first album, 1973, like Aerosmith and Lynyrd Skynyrd. It was a year of...
it's pronounced Leonard Skinner's the name of the album. Yeah, the first album is called It's Pronounced Leonard. I don't know why I can't get these on here. I'm trying to get this to show, but I can't. But anyway, there's a lot on the list, and I've got the list right here. And again, this is from Matt at Ultimate Classic Rock. Bob Seger back in 72, January 1973. Before, in the mid-70s, remember, Bob Seger had been going for a long time in the mid-70s, but then, Main Street came out as a single. It was then Stranger in Town came out the following album. It was crazy for Bob Seger. He took off, but he'd been around, and even Glenn Frey played with him for a little bit. He'd been around for a while before that, so there you go.
James says, hello from Dogwood, Dogtown Road, Shannon and John. I hope your family are doing well. Tammy C, happy Friday, everyone. Hi, John and Shannon. Dr. Insomnia, the Ringo album, closest we ever came to a Beatles reunion.
And that was the best. It's arguably the best Ringo album, right? Simon Cooper, great to finally catch you live. Saw Todd Rundgren and Daryl Hall in London. Fantastic. Keep up the great work. You see he's on Facebook because it shows right there.
Irene Brophy, hey.
Hi, Irene.
She says, I was 3, Shannon. I hear you, girl. And she says, good evening, John and Shannon. Lindy Lou, Slade, Glam Rockers.
Glam Rock. Noah comes, I've talked to Noah all the time. He says both BTO 1 and 2 were out that year. Thank you, Noah. Appreciate it.
Jack Collins says, hello, everyone. I'm from Louisiana. Hope everybody's doing well.
Hey, how you doing, man? Bruce Springsteen, greetings from Asbury Park. January 5th, 1973. When I went back after, I got Born to Run, and that was the breakthrough for him, the big breakthrough. And I preferred Darkness on the Edge of Town, but I kept going back and forth, and that came out right after Born to Run. But the first few albums, I don't know. When I went back, I went going, no, I understand why he broke through with Born to Run. But the first few albums are gospel to so many people. Aerosmith is on here. Yes, January 5th, 1973, the self-titled Aerosmith album. And yes, Who Do We Think We Are? From January 12th, 1973, Deep Purple. Didn't have that till years later.
Oh, Spacey says, yes, Tales from Topographic
Oceans. Oh, Topographic Oceans.
50. As a Yes fan, I can't say I love the whole album, but I do love 2 of their 4 tracks.
You know, when I talked to John Anderson, I talked to him, I says, okay, you guys had those bundle of great albums. Oh, yeah, of course. We keep hearing boop. He had the bundle of great albums, and Tales from Topographic Oceans came out. But John said he really enjoyed it. He said, I loved that record. It took me a while to get into that one, and not until recently. maybe after I talked to John, I forget when it was, around that time that I started going through, I mentioned this before, I started going through all the early Yes albums, some that I hadn't listened to since the 70s. So there you
go. Philip Marlowe, it's the Shannon Show. Hi, yay. Hiya, Shannon. Hey, John.
We call her Shanny Poohead.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do sometimes. I went to Starbucks and she says, who should I put her under? She said, Shannon. I says, no. At home we call her Shanny Poohead. She looked at me, she says, I can't put that on the cup, right?
That's too funny.
Why
not? James says, shamelessly promoting the 29th anniversary of my 39th birthday today.
Yes. Way to go. Little Feat Dixie Chicken, of course, January 25th, 1973. Elton John, as mentioned, 2 albums, Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player, January 73. And when did the other album, Goodbye Little Brick Road came out in the latter part of 73.
Cal Vid, 1973, Best Classic Albums, Jethro Tull, A Passion Play, and ELP, Brain Salad Surgery.
That's one of my, I'm coming up with that one a little bit. That's my favorite, one of my favorite ELP albums. Calvin, thank you for coming on all the time. If anybody hasn't checked his channel, my God, he's got such amazing things on his channel. If you like rock and roll, a lot of things that'll take you right back, like the videos. So check it out. Alice Cooper, let me, before I forget, Alice Cooper, $1 Billion Babies, February 73, Pink Floyd, March 1st, 1973. If you only had Pink Floyd, you don't. The good news is you don't. You have so many albums. But if you only had Dark Side of the Moon, one of the greatest albums of all time, stood the test of time, obviously. It's like Dark Side of the Moon is like some Zeppelin albums where no matter what happens in the world, it'll always be a good idea to play them. Let me see if I've got some stuff on Facebook. You keep going.
Dr. Insomnia, Feeling Stronger Every Day, best Chicago song ever.
Oh, there was Feeling Stronger Every Day and Just You and Me from the same album. I was watching the thing with Jimmy Pankow talking to Robert Lamb, that's our daughter, today, talking about that album where they still had some insecurities at that point. Jimmy Pankow said that, James, as he's put on the album, but he said there was enough. Sometimes when you're not completely sure, you work harder. David Carswell says, Ashes Are Burning Renaissance. Thank you. I'll leave you. I think I'm caught up.
Darren says, speaking of King Crimson and April Wine, Brian Greenway said that when they played 21st Century
Schizoid Man
in 1982, when both bands were on a bill, Robert Fripp stood nearby with his arms crossed.
Oh my God, eh? Brian Greenway is such a nice man, and he sang that song for April Wine when April Wine did it. Electric Light Orchestra, their second album, Yellow 2, March 1973. The Doobie Brothers, The Captain and Me, March 2nd, 1973. There's an album that encompasses all the greatest things about the Doobie Brothers. I mean, I know we had Toulouse Street and What Were Once Vices Are Now Habits in there. And then, of course, after that, the Stampede, and then Taking It to the Streets, Living on the Fault Line, what's the name? Oh, Minute by Minute, duh! One Step Closer. All those albums are just unbelievable. But I remember thinking The Captain and Me with that half overpass done, it was just superb.
JT Shark says former Rolling Stones manager Sam Cutler died today.
Oh, is that right? Didn't know that. I was doing when I do editing all day, I'm almost sequestered upstairs by myself. I'm playing Sirius XM radio in the background, and I'm editing. And my son Chase was editing all night too. The Chris Thompson interview, Blinded by the Light. Chris talks about, if you're a Patreon member, you have access to the whole thing right now. But there's, I think, 36 clips in it. It was such a long interview. Chris Thompson emailed me after and said, hey, man, John, I really enjoyed that. Anytime you want to talk, anytime you let me know. That was enjoyable for me. So there you go.
Bill Griffith said, Uriah Heep Live.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Daniel, Aerosmith's first album.
Todd, yes, it's on this list. Todd Rundgren, Wizard, A True Star, March 2nd, 73. Led Zeppelin, of course, House of the Holy, which was released March 28th, 73. I think that was the last Led Zeppelin album. I'd actually never bought it. If I'm thinking, I bought it used as a CD downstairs. What's one of my least favorite Zeppelin albums?
Ernesto Rodriguez, how about Rush, as they just got noticed on their first album?
Yeah, it was, you know what, I didn't really, people said, from the first to second album, there was this huge, and of course, John Rutsey was the drummer on the first album, and then Neil Peart came on after that on the second, but To me, it was both of them sound quite Rush-like on both. See if I got to anything.
Marty Cott says, Brothers and Sisters, a perfect album.
Hold on. Yeah, thank you.
Pookie chimes in, Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy.
Simon says, how about Band on the Run? I think that was 73. Yeah, that was 73. Well, arguably, again, Paul McCartney's best album, you know.
Rick Tyndall, of course I prefer Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, but Paul Simon's There Goes Rhythm, Simon, fantastic.
Yeah, Paul's album was released May 5th, 1973. It's on the list. David Bowie, Aladdin Sane, April 20th, 73. Eagles, their second album, Desperado, was released in 73. By the way, I'm interviewing Bill Simchick. Next week, it looks like, who came in on the Border, the following album. Glenn Johns was producing, I think, 2 or 3 songs on that album, if I remember correctly off memory. I think it was 2. And then Bill came in to produce the rest, produce One of These Nights, Hotel California, The Long Run, the live album in 1980, and part of Long Road Out of Eden, which, of course, was the comeback album. So we're going to be talking to him. If you want to talk to him, go in the community section here or email or join our Facebook group, and there's a big post about it. If you want to ask Bill a question, it's right there for you.
Big Daddy, Grand Funk were an American band.
Yeah, we covered that one. That was a big one. Mike Oldfield, Tubular Bells. Remember that. That was May 25th, 1973. The Exorcist.
Darren says Bob Marley and the Wailers, Burning.
Yes, that is on this list as well.
Big Daddy, twice removed from Yesterday by Robin Traub.
Oh, thank you. Trying to get an interview, by the way. Joe Walsh, The Smoker You Drink, The Player You Get, June 18th, 1973. By the way, Chris Thompson, Man for Man, Blinded by the Light, he told me that there's a clip, and it's on our Patreon right now. It's coming on in the next couple of weeks on a regular. That he said that Joe Walsh, and Chase loved it because Chase edited the video, our son. He said, Joe Walsh is the funniest guy I've ever met, and he shares some stories, toiletry stories, good stories. It's on our Patreon now. Oh, Steely Dan, Countdown to Ecstasy, of course, July 73, Queen's debut album, July 13th, 73. Queen's debut album, if you know how they started, they were an all-out rock band. On that first album, it's a rock album. It really is. And then they changed after that.
Electric Sailor says Rush debut wouldn't be released until a year later, but I suppose you could count the recording as it was 1973. Doobie Brothers, Captain and Me, was also released that year.
Yes, we talked about that. Yeah.
Mikhail says, Budgie Never Turn on a Friend.
I was never really big into that band. Oh, yeah. Simon Cooper said Tubular Bells. Mike Oldfield, we've covered that. Thank you, Simon. I'm taking the Facebook ones, and she's taking the...
A New Avatar. I was born May 27th, 73. I feel old.
Ah, cool. We have a 73 baby there. There you go. Great year. Really, you were born in... I was born in 60. Shannon was born in 70, the latter part of 70. I was born in the beginning. That's why I'm almost 11 years older than she is. No, I never dated her back in those teen years.
Douglas Struthers, Elton and Pink Floyd, Life is Good. Dr. Insomnia, China Grove, and Long Train Running. Yeah,
and It's a Natural Thing. Don't you know? Sounded like a hit by the Doobie Brothers, but it wasn't a hit. It sounded so in the pocket that a lot of people include it in their playlist because it sounds like any Doobie Brothers hit, but it just wasn't. And there's never sometimes enough time because you had the self-titled debut, which didn't really do a lot. Toulouse Street, had Long Train Running and Listen to the Music, but man, The Captain and Me, what an album. And the cover of What Were Once Vices Are Now Habits, them on stage, that was so cool. And then Stampede, they're all on horses. I asked Jeff Skunk Baxter, why weren't you on the cover? He said, could you not ride a horse? He said, no, I could ride a horse. I was busy. I was doing a session, I think he told me, or something. That's why he's not on the cover, because he was a full-fledged member by then.
Fraser J. covers, how were the reviews from last week's Friday Night Live? Any chance of future fans calling in on Friday Night Live?
Well, not only that, with the software, we use Ecamm Live here with Restream. So Ecamm Live is the one that gets us on the internet. Restream is the one that gets us on YouTube, Facebook, our Facebook groups.
True.
Twitter, I think someone told me that Twitter's not working. So that's the one that we use. But with Ecamm Live, this software we've been using for this longest time, is we can give out, this might be scary. She said, you really want to do that a while ago. We can give out a link and you could just join on. So for some of you, if you ever want to join on and talk to us as well as we talk to other people, you can actually be on the screen with us. We just send you a link to select people. If you're on our Patreon, you'll automatically be invited in if you want. But that's the deal if you want to come on. Now, we've invited some Patreon people before, and they went, I'm not coming on screen. I'm like, no, that's okay. That's okay. But if you want to come on, especially if you're starting a channel or something like that, because I always help people, even if they're starting a channel like us, it doesn't matter. If you need some help, we can do that for you.
Phil Stevenson, hey John and Shan, happy Friday. Mike Oldfield, Tubular Bells, Eagles Desperado, and Yes songs.
Yes, and Tales of Topographic Oceans. What do I got? I've got one of my favorite Jethro Tull albums, A Passion Play, released in the summer. Oh, look at this, July 23rd. What's the date today? July 14th. What do we got? Grand Funk released on this day 50 years ago tomorrow, July 15th. Grand Funk were an American band, like 73.
Tomorrow, Queen, then 15.
Oh, Queen, yeah, the debut album. So that was, yesterday. Yeah, because we're the 14th. ZZ Top, Tres Hombres, July 26, 73. The Allman Brothers Band, Brothers and Sisters, August, and you mentioned that a while ago, August 73. Leonard Skinner, pronounced Leonard Skinner after their school teacher. They named the band after a school teacher. August 13th, 73, just a few. Goat's Head Soup. August 31st, 73, Rolling Stones and Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. Overnight Sensation, September 7th, 73. That's a mouthful.
XOXXO Bob, hi. Knew you were coming on, but you don't show up on being live on my subscription bar.
That's funny. Did you press the bell notification? We're on, by the way, live at this time every week. 5:15 Mountain Time, which would be 4:15 Pacific. 6:15 Central, we're Mountain Time. And then 7:15 Eastern, 8:15 Atlantic. I think I got that right.
Todd Garland, hey Todd. In 73, I was 14 and had just started buying albums. Although there is quite a contrast in their styles, I recall buying Jackson Browne's For Every Man and Alice Cooper's $1 Billion Baby.
The next one on the list, Jackson Browne, For Every Man, released October 1973. And the one I showed you a while ago, Selling England by the Pound, was released also in October of 73, arguably Genesis' best album. I mean, really, come on. It just is Genesis' best album. If you want to look at creativity and how good they were. And the beginning of 73 was Elton John's Don't Shoot Me. Sorry about the glare. And at the end of 73, near the end, was Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Back then, and in some years, he was releasing two. One of my favorite albums, as I mentioned a while ago. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up again. Electric Jewels, April Wine. 73, where Jim Clench, who left the band after Stand Back, which was arguably one of their best albums as well, he was singing almost every song back and forth with Miles Goodwin. That's one of the reasons he left. He just didn't feel like he was getting enough of a piece of the pie.
Thanks, James, for the reminder. Don't forget to hit that like button.
Thank
you. It's great for our algorithm. We so appreciate it.
Yeah, it is.
Dr. Insomnia, Iggy and the Stooges, Raw Power, Punk is Born.
Yeah, I've got, we talked about Elton John. Neil Young, Time Fades Away, October 15th. I'm just going to get through the October. Montrose, the debut, October 73. David Bowie, Pinups, October 1973. The Who, Quadrophenia, there's a big one. October 26, 73. John Lennon, Mind Games, another big one. October 29th, 73. And we're going to get to Black Sabbath in a second. But that's a lot of albums, a lot of great records. That's why it was such a good year.
Justine, I remember so hoping Beatles get back together again.
Oh, that was the first few years of that decade. It was even up to the point where, John Lennon died on December 8th, 1980. When I moved to Edmonton from a small town in northeast New Brunswick, I moved to Edmonton, and the April Fool's joke in '79 was, or no, it would have been 1980 because that's right. The April Fool's joke was someone calling in pretending to be John Lennon and saying, "We're going to give it another go." And I remember going, that kind of sounds like Lennon, but yeah, and I thought, oh no, it's April Fool's. A station called K97, which was a big station in Edmonton, did the April Fool's. I remember getting really, really angry. I hadn't gotten into radio yet. I was just angry they did that.
Mark Haas just tuned in. Don't know if anyone meant quadrophenia.
Yes, we just mentioned it. About that. Oh, just maybe 2 minutes before you got
on. David Brook, Blind Faith, Hyde Park.
Hall & Oates Abandoned Luncheonette, November 3rd, 73, Black Sabbath. Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, November 1973, big album. Springsteen, The Wild and the Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle, November 5th, 73.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, Justiny, thank you for your super chat.
Yes, sorry.
Thanks for your donation.
And nothing popped up on our screen.
Yeah, it always does.
Yeah, nothing popped up on our screen. So thank you.
It should pop up on mine.
But it didn't pop up. So thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Kershaw Media, Band on the Run was good.
Yeah.
Brian Daniel, Michael Stanley's Friends and Legends.
Thank you for all the... I've also got Alice Cooper, Muscle of Love, November 20th. Billy Joel's Piano Man, The Breakthrough for him, November 9th, 73. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, it's been mentioned quite a few times. Brain Salad Surgery, November 1973. McCartney and Wings, Band on the Run, December 5th, 73. And yes, Tales of Topographic Oceans, December 7th, 1973.
Record Hound, Evening John Shannon, ZZ Top's Breakout LP, Tres
Hombres.
You bet, came out in 1973.
Yeah, it's on our list. And again, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention from Ultimate Classic Rock, he's the guy who did a lot of the legwork for this. Matt Wardlaw of Ultimate Classic Rock magazine. If you haven't checked out download their app. They've got a great app to a point where I contacted an app dealer once and I didn't know where they were. I said, can you make me an app like Ultimate Classic Rock? That's the best app. Such an easy app to go through. And he gave me a quote of, I think, $5,000. And I went, I don't have that kind of money, but thanks. And then I started getting app emails, and they must have put me on the list, and logo emails, and a ghostwriter emails. I was just, oh
my God. Fenderman 73.
Oh, Bill Simchick produced The Thrill Is Gone by B.B. King. Yes.
His only hit and fooled around and fell in love. Evelyn Bishop's only hit.
Yeah. And we're going to ask him about all that stuff. I don't know how much time I have with him. Henry Paul called him because Henry and the Outlaws were recording in one room, recording with Bill as the Eagles were recording with him as well. And so they hung out with the Eagles an awful lot. Henry told me some good stories about, just hanging out with the guys. And he said by then Randy was sort of disinterested in a lot of things. By then he wanted to leave. Randy Meisner, that is.
Justine said, hey, John, were you wearing the huge bell bottoms and polyester shirt?
I was. In 73, I was still in my nice boy, kind of like the checkered pants. I had checkered pants in 73, and then the big, I wasn't cool yet. I wasn't wearing jeans yet. So I hadn't, and then I went to school, and some guy called me a nerd or something. He was much bigger than me. I've got it all in my journal. I could tell on him.
Rick May, Faces, Ooh La La, Paul Simon,
yes.
There goes, Ryman Simon, George Harrison, Living in the Material World. By the way, I was born in 1951. Feel free to do the math.
That's okay. Oh, great era to grow up. I listened to the 50s channel on Sirius, and even I listen to anything that's old to
Chase loves the 50s.
He loves 50s. Our son, he's 19. He's going to be 20 in November.
But loves that.
He almost bought a dog yesterday, by the way. Came close to.
You were so close.
I'm not going to show you the pictures, but because it'll make it real. What was the breed?
Well, we had another dog that passed away, and he was a Havanese, and we had rehomed him.
Because he barked too much for autistic dogs.
So we were looking at an Aussie Lear. So it's an Australian Shepherd with a Cavalier King Charles mix. So you've got the energy of the Aussie, but you have the couch potato of the Cavalier. So that was what we were hoping for, but we've just got a lot going on. So we just thought perhaps we would just...
Am I allowed to show this picture?
Not sure.
Okay.
It's kind of distorted, but this is the little guy.
There's the little guy right there. We almost...
Although I don't know how little he would have actually have been, because one was 20 pounds and one was 24. So
the reason we don't go to the shelter and get a dog is because we have an autistic daughter who's unpredictable with a dog, who may be unpredictable as well, a dog, because we don't know where that dog's been. So we would have to get a puppy. We'd have no choice. And but
because I would for sure go through SPCA or some,
of course,
or rescue if that was sort of in the cards.
And we also have a few friends that have had bad experiences, and one friend with an autistic son who had a bad experience because he just was mauling at the dog. And sometimes any dog would go, "Hey, back off," you know. But they didn't know he was doing.
But Danica's really actually she's pretty good.
She is. And to be clear, he wasn't mauled by the dog. He was mauling the dog, and the dog went.
Spacey, I'm slightly older than Shannon, but I envy your generation, John. I was just a kid in the 70s, and I'm convinced I should have been born earlier. Spacey, yeah, you know.
She's always saying that.
I'm the same thing. I was a kid in the 70s, but I feel the exact same way. And I even said that to you.
I don't know how many times and how many interviews. I'm doing an interview, and I'm coming downstairs, and I'm playing the song, and Shannon will always come and say, "Who is that?" And I always feel a responsibility to tell the artist that I'm getting. So if you hear me saying that in interviews a lot, it's because she literally always says, "Who is that?" She's always curious, and it'll be a new song of the artist, or else like Albert Bouchard, I'm interviewing again, the drummer for Blue Oyster Cult, not anymore, but he played on all those big hits. Yes, the cowbell. And anyway, I'll be playing his new album. I bet you anything she'll come up and say, "Who is that?" Because she just wants to know, or likes it.
Record Hound, you make me laugh. John, I'd love to come on, but I never go on camera. I call it a public service to save all screens.
Well, that's okay. The Celine 687, I know that's YouTube, but
okay.
The Captain and Me Dewey Brothers 73, yeah. It was just such a great album.
Linus Littlefield, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath.
Yeah, mentioned that one today.
Yep. Bill Griffin, yay for Gentle Giant.
Oh, I love Gentle Giant. Derek Shulman's, there's an interview with Derek Shulman, the lead singer, who became a record executive and helped break and discover Bon Jovi. And he's on this channel. We have a fairly long interview with him.
Brad Stope, Dark Side was off the hook.
Yeah. Like I said a while ago, even if that was the only album, which is impossible, but remember, I had to, because my CD, since we moved, how long have we been here? 5 months?
Yeah, it feels like we've been here a long time, but it's been 4 months.
Electric Jewels, April 1, great Canadian band.
And I don't know, for those of you who turned in, we lived back east, but John would have all of his autographs up on the wall downstairs. So we're trying to kind of do the same sort of thing upstairs, but they're still sitting there.
They're still sitting on the floor. What we want to do is we want to buy those long, you go to IKEA and you get those long little shelving. They're only about this thick, but you can put an album on or a picture. That way you don't have a lot of holes in the wall.
But then they're just falling down, so it's like...
I don't think they would. I mean, it's not going to hurt the album. It's going to hurt the glass on the album. So, I don't know.
Oh... Pookie says Iggy and the Stooges, Raw Power. I think saw that.
Mentioned a few times, yeah.
Let's see. Dr. Insomnia. There was great stuff, more than you realize, but most of the good stuff was on freeform FM or college radio, not top 40 infiltrated by Carpenters, John Denver, ABBA, etc. Had to search for your Zappa.
If you were a rock fan, that's true, because contemporary hit radio, top 40 radio, which they called it back then, would play everything that was in the top 40, with the exception of a few songs, depending upon the demographic that was in the city. The reason I liked old-time top 40 radio, and I worked for a top 40 station in the early 90s, that was the station in Vancouver, which was 14 Seafun. I was actually the last person on 14 Seafun to do a music show. I broke the station. And then they turned talk the next day. We knew that was going to happen. But they said, excuse me, you're going to be the last guy. And go, what? Yeah, I was the last guy to play music on that classic station. So I always say I broke the station. But they played like what became sort of a CHR station, but it was top 40, anything that was that new, as well as some old stuff. Great station to work for. I'm honored that I worked for that station.
Hike with Mike. Hey, folks. Hey. Hi,
Hey.
Mike. Ooh, Maddie K, USA.
Oh, my God. Thank you for the donation.
Thank you so much.
Super chat.
Tubular Bells was an epiphany for many of us back then in 73. Mike Oldfield. Thank you so much, Maddie. Sorry.
Thank you. Wow. That's a nice donation.
I'm not seeing that come up on screen, so my
I don't know why they're not coming up today.
It's not showing up.
It's not coming up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Very thoughtful.
All you have to do is do that. Thank you so much again.
Brian says, Fog Hat, rock and roll.
Oh, I you know my Fog Hat story. I've told it a few times where there was a great guy, such a nice human being. Mike was his name. He was on the radio station where I grew up, and he came on there and he didn't know. Because Fog Hat, to him, was a new band. And remember Slow Ride? And he got on, he had one of these kind of voices. He went on the radio and talked like this. And he said, hey, here's Fugget. And he thought that was the name of the band. To go with that other saying, that profane saying. So he thought it was pronounced Fugget. And he didn't know. And I remember going, oh, no, poor Mike. I felt so bad for him. We've all done it in radio. But I knew fans who liked Fog Hat, so I knew how to say it.
Record Hound, 1973 was when Uni was folded in MCA. The first MCA 45 release was Crocodile Rock. Plain black labels because it just charted on Uni.
Yeah, I remember the people have old Elton John albums are on Uni, and then all of a sudden the beautiful rainbow of MCA came out, and I remember going, wow, I like that. That's beautiful.
Keith Bates, Pink Floyd, Moody Blues, Neil Diamond, and others. What's not film about 1973? Steve Miller, remember The Joker?
Yeah. Was it Joker 73 or 74? I'm trying to think. Maybe it was 73.
Hike with Mike. As much as I love my 80s music, me too, Mike, I gotta say the 70s was the greatest decades for music, especially the singer-songwriters. Yeah, so much talent.
I'm just going to look up The Joker. I thought it was 74, but it could be 73. You're probably right. Stay signed out.
Chris says, Countdown to Ecstasy, Steely Dan, Billy.
Yes, we mentioned that one.
Spectrum, yes.
You're right, 73. Recorded in August 73 and released in October 73. The Joker.
Let's see, Ernest Connell, The Carpenters, Steve Taxian, Jethro Tull. So, yeah, brain cell surgery. Billy mentioned that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
See the back of my head. There you go.
Record Hound, you're into 50s. I worked in oldies radio, John.
Is that right? Yeah. Oldies. 14C Fun became an oldies station by the time I got to it. It wasn't playing new music anymore. Oh, well, sometimes we play things like Something Happened on the Way to Heaven by Phil Collins, but a lot of what we played on Saturday nights, we used to play a lot of oldies. I actually got to know music a little bit better by listening, by being on 14C Fun and listening to them. And that was an era, man. I just couldn't believe I was working at this station.
Todd Garland, anybody recall what the average cost of an album was in 1973? Seems to me it was about $3.99 to $4.99 American. What was the average cost of a 3 to 4 finger lid of weed? $10 to $15. The two go together. Sometimes I just read and I'm at the end.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, sometimes too, when I find myself reading, I'm just like, I feel like I'm a talking head when I'm just reading, but I'm not really thinking about what I'm reading. Yeah. And sometimes by the end of the sentence, I'll say, we got a super chat. There it comes up. So there's another one that came up.
Oh, from Maddie K USA again. And one more for Selling England by the Pound. Genesis was just incredible at that point.
There you go, Maddie K. Got it right there. Thank you.
Yep, both.
That's Selling England by the Pound. The Battle of the Epping Forest. I love that song. Oh, my God. And, we haven't mentioned, but there's not, Dancing with Moonlit Night. Oh, God. Firth of Fifth. More Fool Me. The Battle of Epping Forest. After the Ordeal. The Cinema Show. Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Thank you so much, Maddie KUSA, for your support. We so appreciate it.
That's so nice of you. Thank you.
Thoughtful.
Appreciate it. We were just saying the other day, it's like we don't ask for donations or things, and one of my friends was saying, how come you don't mention us? Well, we had a drive. Justiny. It hasn't come up on your thing yet. Oh, there you
go. Yeah, that was, I think, from before.
I don't know why they're coming up here. It's strange.
Sorry.
So for anybody, because we're on the verge of wrapping up. For anyone who hasn't heard your favorite albums from '73, we went through Matt from Rock History, Ultimate Classic Rock, did this, like, it's an arduous task to do that kind of thing. That's why we don't do, rockers who died in this year yet, because that's a lot of people. But on Friday Night Live, it's different when we do this. Because one of the things, we're going to buy a switcher. Well, thanks to Maddie K, we might be able to buy one now. A switcher is just basically a box. It looks like an iPhone. It's not vertical. It's horizontal. It's like this. And basically, you press some switchers, you press a button, and it'll just take you to the next picture, and you'll see it on screen. Now, this is a live thing, so obviously we want to be on screen. But now when we're talking about a specific, Chris.
So we want to say thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Donation, and so did.
What's Chris's last name? Schrecker. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
And so did, how do you pronounce it? Justine,
I think.
Justine, yes. 2 times.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. Sorry, it's not coming up on screen, so I'm having to.
There's a glitch tonight, and I'm getting even the Facebook. Mind you, Facebook is not a big area for us right now, but if we keep going to Facebook every week, it'll start showing up. More people expect it. But by the way, we are on every Friday. We have an author coming up in a couple of weeks, and I haven't cemented the dates. I talked to a guitarist today who also told me that he said, I'd love to come on Friday Night Live. I said, okay, sure. He's more of a jazzer, but he's a great musician. And we might start doing that, but as long as everyone knows we're not going to do it every week, because we stopped doing it because I was very stressed out trying to get a guest all the time. We had like Steve Porcaro on, Henry Gross on, Charlie Morgan, the drummer. Oh, God, we had like 12 people. Marcus Eaton, who was David Crosby's lead guitarist on tour. His brother's the one that did that.
But a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So Shannon usually reads the things, and I've always got questions ahead of time ready to go anyway. But the list, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this list in the description so you can see them all. It's not a complete list, but again, I want to give credit to Matt Wardlaw of Ultimate Classic Rock, who came up with this, and he wrote a little thing on each album. And I'll put the list to that as well, because they always, when they share my stories, they always put the video at the bottom of the list. They give credit where credit is due, because I would not do this. I mean, I wouldn't have done it if once for Matt did the homework, and I'm going, that's way more work than I want to do, and he's obviously up to the challenge. And Ultimate Classic Rock is a great site.
That was so nice of Maddie KUSA. You guys have been so great for so long.
Thank you.
It's a treat when I can drop by and support just a little.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's supporting a lot.
I'm just getting a lot of, I'm still kind of going back and forth.
No, thanks, Maddie.
Aaron Campbell says, hey, John Shan, I think vinyl was $2.99 to $3.99 in 1973.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I didn't really start buying till probably, I was more cassetting back then in 73. I was 13. I had a cassette that I would record off the radio. I'd record stuff. I remember the one of the first cassettes that I still have is a 3 Degrees, When Will I See You Again? And there was a boss DJ on there. And I remember going, I want to sound just like that. And then I quickly realized a few years later when I recorded my voice that there was a good chance that I would never have the balls that a boss jock would have. And I never did. It's like I don't. Even with Scotch. I love Scotch on a weekend, a little Scotch, and even with that, it's they say it'll lower your voice. And I smoked for a year, but that's not enough. So there you go. So thank you everybody for coming on.
Yeah. So it's always a pleasure to connect with you every Friday.
This is fun.
We always look forward to it.
Well, Shannon now works out of the home with me, and what we're going to do is, without saying it's a Today in History thing, which is, as you noticed, we did before. We stopped doing it because it's an insane amount of work, but we want to buy a switcher, like I said. So basically, when you have a switcher, as I mentioned a while ago, you can go, okay, I'm talking about Elton John. I know Elton John's on E or whatever. And you go from that person. And it makes what we're doing a lot better, but more interesting for you. So if we're talking about Goodbye Yellow Brick Road or Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player, the two albums from '73, we can put them. It might not cover us. Some of them will. And it just makes for a more interesting video. And then they can also do stuff. Like that. So, what?
I think you missed your calling.
I missed my calling. I could have been jazz hands. Is it this? Shannon took dancing for a lot of years. She danced. Anyway, I'm going to put this list on our thing. If something breaks on the weekend, we'll come on. But again, thank you we love you guys. I always have to say I love you guys, and you notice I say this after everything, every broadcast, because we make a living on YouTube. This is how we make our art. Oh God, we had another one. Tammy C.
Thank you, Tammy. Love your channel. My first car was given to me from my parents. It was a 1973 Pontiac Le Mans in 1981. The Great Bad Company formed in 1973, but released their debut in 1973.
Wasn't that a boat? Wasn't that a 73 Le Mans? I mean, everything was a boat back then, but a big car. But you know what? All those boats, remember? Shannon was saying...
My parents had a Pontiac Grand Prix. I think it was a Grand Prix. I'll have to ask them again. But then when I heard Le Mans, I'm like, but yes,
oh, is that right?
I think it was a Grand. Oh, I'm talking about Pontiac Grand.
Oh my God, those cars! They were just amazing. Such a great ride. Remember, you always say they're big, but man, they drove. I had a '75 Cordoba, and it drove like, oh my God, with Corinthian leather seats.
Trying to parallel park.
Ricardo Montalban. Oh yeah. That's why I think the old guys like me. That's why she always says, how can you park that far back up that far and park that close to the garage wall? I said, I don't know. I used to drive a boat. Driving an RDX. That's easy.
Oh, thanks, Alec. Alex says, love you guys. This page feels like home to me. Brad says, thank you both. Always enjoy. The Saline 786, love you. Thank you. Maddie, yeah, you guys are both very special.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
So again, before we leave, we're going to do the Today in History thing. What we're going to do is Shannon always goes through Today in History, and I'll say, well, we have to have a good title. It has to have it has to make people curious. Anyone who does YouTube knows that. You don't want to do clickbait. You want to deliver what you say. Don't you hate it when you see a banner that says shows that have been canceled, and it's always the #1 show on TV? Because you want people to, what? That's been canceled? That's cheating, and I hate that kind of clickbait. But we always want to have something that makes people say, wow, what is that? Right? And that's always interesting, as hopefully this did. So thank you, everybody. Have a really, really nice weekend. If news breaks, we'll come on and we'll present it. And if there's something interesting in history tomorrow, we'll come on and do a little thing right here in our living room. Love you guys. Take good care.